Hello all, good morning, good evening or good afternoon based on wherever you're seeing this and whenever you're seeing this. So finally we came to the last part of this series, which is specifically for India localization, and we were upgrading from NAV 2016 India localization to BusinessCentral 26. In the last video we talked about if your customer want to go to cloud, then how you do it. But then thank you for the comments that you guys had, and somebody said, why not on-prem? So your wishes are command. And in today's video, we'll see how you upgrade the similar customer from version 25, which was already completed in the past in part 3, to version 26 on-prem. Now this video is a little bit different. So it's not specific to India, and we'll be using India database and all, but anyone who want to upgrade from 25 to 26 can use this video for their purposes. In the PowerShell commands that I'll be sharing later on the GitHub, you can just skip the India section if you're not using it for India localization. There is one script that you would have seen me using in most of the videos, and I know most of you have requested it, but it's kind of an internal IP. Internally at edhateconsulting.com, we have single click upgrades, or more or less 2-click upgrade from any version of Business Central to the higher version of Business Central, based on what we know and how we can automate it. So if you have a business requirement, reach out to us. But let's get back to the business. Okay. So let's understand the environment if you're coming to this video for the first time. Here we are on my version 25. And if you remember, we had 3 companies, Kronos India, Mock and Test. And we'll be upgrading this to version 26. I have already installed version 26. The installation video is available in the installation playlist. So if you haven't watched that, go ahead and watch it. So this is currently pointing to Kronos India, and there is only 1 company. And in version 25, we have 3 companies. From an extension perspective, because we are upgrading from a legacy version, at this point, we have only core extensions, the minimum set of extension that are needed to bring the NAV data into Business Central. So from a worldwide perspective, we have application, base application, business foundation, and system application. And what else you see is part of the India localization. Now what we will be doing in this video, we'll be upgrading this to version 26 on-prem, 26.1, and we'll also be installing all the new apps that are part of Business Central 26. So are we ready? Let's get into it. Okay. Before we start, just a placeholder for all these files that we have used in this upgrade series is inside GitHub. The link will be available in the description as well as on the pinned comment to this video. So here you have all the files that we have used. For version 26, because there are a lot of apps, I might not put all the files because it's useless to put it there. You can always get it from product DVD. This repo consists all upgrade PowerShell script that you have seen in any video in this channel. So everything is here. If you have hard time finding something, let me know into the comments. I'll be happy to help. Okay. Having said that, let's talk about India upgrade. Now we'll be referring to this article during this video. Just FYI, for whatever reasons, Microsoft have not included India localization upgrade paths into this. We'll be following what we have followed for everyone, and hopefully we'll succeed. Let's see. The important thing to remember, which I have already said in the past, that if you are coming from a prior version, then version 25, then you will have to upgrade to version 25. It's a mandate because 25 was announced as a jump version. So like we came from BC 14 to version 25. If you are from 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 till 24, you will have to upgrade yourself to V25 first. And then and only then you can go to V26. So we'll be doing that. The link of this article will also be available in the pinned comment and the description of the video. So let's get it with it. Okay. So first what we do is we run our PowerShell on the older version, which is version 25 in this case. Let's understand this. So we are importing the module of version 25, which lets PowerShell to understand that these commands which I'm going to run after this are part of its knowledge base. The next one is I'm uninstalling all the extension from version 25. Now I've said it many times, but I'll remind you again. Uninstalling an extension does not remove the data from an extension. So this is a pipe command. The first command gets all the apps or extensions, and then the output of this is given to the second command, which uninstalls the app based on the name, version that it gets from the first command. Now you might get some error because of the dependency, but no worries, we will run it again if needed, right? So in this command, when you download it from GitHub, you just have to change your server instance name based on whatever you are using so that the command is tweaked. And I have added that step here, that you need to change BC252 in this case, in my case, to your actual server instance that you're using, and that way the prompt will know that what it need to execute. So as you see that there are some warnings that it cannot remove some of the extension because because either it's not installed or it's not installed, it's saying. So let's wait for it, let it do it for everybody, and we'll see it. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to unpublish all the extension. Again, unpublishing does not remove any extension data that you have associated with that particular app. So uninstalling just removes it, and you might get an error like this. That is because there is a cross dependency with other app. So don't worry about it, because there is a cross dependency. System doesn't understand the cross dependency. Let me try to explain you. So if there is a app which you have built, it surely have a dependency with the base app and the system application and the application. If you try to remove the system application or the base application first, it'll tell you that it cannot remove it because it is required by one other app that is already installed on your system. So you will have to run it multiple times because there are cross dependencies based on what extensions you are using. And once all these dependencies one by one will be removed, you will be able to kind of move forward with it. At that given moment of time, we'll not see any error message here. Now, because it's an India environment, there are so many dependencies around so many extensions. So you might need to run it multiple times. For other environments globally, we have seen that it kind of runs faster because the number of dependencies are less. So let's see, we have reached to a point where there are 2 dependencies at this point pending. So that should be over now, hopefully. Let's see what happens. All right. So it's just trying to remove the minimum dependencies first, which items with 0 extension. And if everything succeeds, then you don't get an error message. Now, in the prior versions of Business Central, and even today, there are some symbols. Symbols are apps which does not have table metadata more or less, which is required. And during upgrade, you are also required to remove symbols associated with those apps, because the new version will come up with its own symbols which will get installed. So that's done. And then finally, you stop your BC252 service, the old service, right? Now, before we do that, let me see if we have the environment still available or can we access it or not. So let me refresh this. This is my BC252, and if you can see, I'm not able to open that environment. That means every possible app that was there is currently removed. Okay, so I'll stop the service so that the database is disconnected with any of the service that's required or that'll stop it to kind of move forward. Once this is done, it's time to go back to the version 26 PowerShell script. You need to close PowerShell, open a new window, and here we are. We'll talk about each step as we do. So I'm first importing version 26 module. This installs brings all the commands here. Then we need to convert the database. So we need the database name. So I'll change it or copy it here, that this is my database name. And in the similar way, I'll change it here. Okay. So the first command on line number 12, what it does, it technically converts your database to version 26. Now people who have worked on NAV will understand it, that in the prior versions of NAV, because of your customer being on very old version, you wanted them to use a higher exe, so you open their database with a higher executable. That's typically 2009 till now. So that is the scenario which is being covered with this command. Next, in the old versions, we used to go to the service panel and change some service parameter. The same thing we are doing here. We are setting up the server name, database server. If you had an instance, you can enable this command and define your instance here. Then we are changing the database name on the service, and then we are disabling the task scheduler. So any task that might be configured will not execute during the upgrade process. You should enable it after your upgrade is done. Once it is done, you need to restart the service, and that's where we are restarting the service right now. If you are coming on from a very old version, not from version 25, which was using FLF, you have to clear license configuration and all. If you need to install your license import your license during the upgrade step, you can just enable this and restart your service. Otherwise, that can be skipped. Now let's do the sync, which kind of validates that everything from a data perspective is in place. So the sync validates that whatever data was there in the system, based on whatever we have done till now, has not caused any data loss. Coming to this now. Now typically, what I prefer to do is publish the very common, or I call them core extensions in the environment. My core extension, which will be dependent on every extension that's there, is system application, business foundation, base application, and application. Now you can get it from the product DVD. I'll show it to you as I run the publish. But then these are the minimum set of extensions that are required to have any further extensions into BusinessCentral. Now having said that, let me pop up my environment and let me open a separate tab so that I can show it to you what I have picked it from. Okay, so here is my BusinessCentral 26.1 product DVD. Inside this, you will find an application folder. The application folder contains all the executables, all the apps that you need for a version 26.1 environment. From here, I know that the core extension or the main extensions that I need is application, base app, business foundation, and where is my system application. These are the minimum requirement. When you build an extension on VS Code, you automatically get a dependency with business foundation, base application, and system application. Application is just an overlay which kind of connects all these three, and that's how you are able to get symbols in your VS Code. So whenever I'll do upgrade, or if you have seen my previous videos, I always place these 4 files in a folder called core, and these files are then get published as the first step. Now Microsoft article talks a little bit different about it, but we'll be following that as we go along, because without these apps, either it's an Indian localization or any other localization, no extension will be published until unless these core dependencies are published already. So it'll take some time because still, as you can see from the file size, the base application is still the biggest app in the Business Central ecosystem as of today. So we'll have to give it some time so that it gets published. Once the publishing of these is over, then because we are doing for India, and if you're not doing for India, you can just remove this part and move forward with it. But we'll be installing or publishing the newer version of India extensions. Now for the India extensions, what I've done is here, other than core, I have an IN folder which contain all these India extensions which are needed for India localization. And that's why you see the path here. Okay. From a product DVD perspective, let's get into it. Every India extension starts with IN. So anything that starts with IN becomes your India extension candidate. Not this one, not intra-straight, but all these. So these 11 extensions are kind of specific to India, and they will get published as this particular publishing is over around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and then we'll see how publishing of India apps goes. Okay, so the core extension seems to be published successfully and the restart happened as we expected. Now what we'll do is we will publish the apps which are related to India. Remember, they need to follow the same set of pattern and it is causing error. Okay, maybe I'm using the wrong set of apps. I'll just update that and that's okay. I should have no problems because it seems, oh, I did not change the 252, which I should have changed. So let me just make that change. This is what happens when you copy paste stuff. Right? Okay, so let's see that. No worries, it's just a service name which I did not update it, but when you'll get it on the GitHub, they'll be pointing to the right version. So make sure that you check this basic stuff. Okay, let's run it. Now, as I was saying earlier, before the error kind of popped up, is make sure that these apps are for India localization are only in the same order, because again, as for any other app, India apps also follow a dependency graph, and the first app that's needed is the tax engine, which will be a dependent app on the future apps that you see on the list. So if you're not using India localization, just skip this section from 35 to 48 and you'll be good moving forward with that. Now these apps should not be of big size, but let's have a look. The only big app that I see here is a GST app from a size perspective, but they should be pretty small to kind of get into the system. Now, based on what the upgrade logic that has been written by Microsoft, we'll see how slow or fast these kind of gets upgraded when we reach to that point. Now, typically in an extension word, how you upgrade an app is you publish the newer version of app. At that moment, there are two versions of app on your environment, the older version and the newer version of the app. Then you run the sync with the newer version just to verify that the new schema is not causing any data loss to your existing data into these apps. Once that sync process is complete, then you run the start nav data upgrade. Now, there's a little bit of confusion why about the start nav data upgrade, but let's talk about it while this is happening. In the extension word, each extension that is written by whosoever, in this case Microsoft, each extension will contain its own upgrade logic because the data is associated or mapped to that particular app. So whenever you get a newer version of app, there might be an upgrade path or there may not be an upgrade path, but you don't know it as a developer who haven't built that app. So in that case, it becomes important that you run the start nav data upgrade, so that if there is an upgrade path, that gets executed. If there is not an upgrade path, then still it'll follow installing that app and removing the older app. So always, whenever you have an extension in place, do follow the three major steps. One is the publishing of the new app, which we are doing right now. Once this is done, we'll be doing a synchronization of these apps, and let's come down there. So now we are synchronizing the core apps. Again, the same concept, that these apps are required by every other app that we'll be using in this environment going forward. So first we need to make sure that these apps are in sync. Now what does a sync means? A sync means that it verifies that the newer version, which is this version, and that's where the version parameters become important, is synchronized with the environment to see that there is no destructive change into the newer version. And if there is one, you will get an error message on your screen. So this is just verifying that your data is safe while you are upgrading an app, and that's why it becomes important to run the synchronize. The format that you run the synchronize, the command is sync nav app, which is synchronize a particular app. Then you provide the server instance, which server or service you want to synchronize, and the service is connected to a database. And then the tenant default is specifically for a multi-tenant environment. So if you have multi-tenant, then you specify each tenant. In our case, as we are not multi-tenant, you can just specify tenant default, or you can even skip that parameter if needed. Then the next parameter is the name of the app, not the path, the name of the app. The name of the app signifies which app need to be synchronized. And last but not least, that if you have multiple versions of an app, is the version. Now as this is completed, that means any of the core app are not making any destructive changes with version 26. Following the same order, we are now synchronizing the India extensions, which is the apps which are associated with India localization. Now they will do the same thing, that against the newer version of these apps, is there a data loss that may happen if you introduce this. In any of these steps, and I'm only talking about the standard Microsoft apps, if you get an error message, either you have done something wrong or you have missed a specific area of the documentation of special circumstances, and maybe in the future video we'll talk about it. Okay, so somewhere I made a mistake, which is 252, and I'm making these mistakes all the time, I guess. So I just need to make sure that this is sync. Okay, now if you have error messages and you wanted to verify something, which never happened before, but let's do this. You can get NAV app info on a particular server instance, let's say BC260 in our case, specify tenant, at least in this command because this is needed. And then I would like to see it in a list view, so I can say grid view. When I run this command, this will pop up a grid which will tell me each and every app that's part of this environment. Now if you look at it, all the apps that I see in this environment have version 26.1, from system application to base application to application and to business foundation, and then other India apps, which should be 11. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, 12. One is for the QR code, which is not India specific, but okay, not a part of it. But interestingly, if you look at it, that all these new versions are published, it says it doesn't need an upgrade, which is weird, but it says they are synchronized, and it says that none of these are yet installed, which means either you install them or you upgrade them, which automatically kicks on the install. But the interesting part is the extension data version column. Now if you look at it, the application or the extension version that you have is 26.1, but your data is still on 25.6. This data version will only get upgraded when you run the upgraded step. So we'll come to that in a while. Okay, now we are running the data upgrade. Again, we'll follow the same path, that we'll first upgrade the core apps, which is the system application, business foundation, base application, and application. Now, if there is an upgrade routine written by Microsoft inside these four apps from version 25.6 to BusinessCentral 26.1, that logic will kick in at this moment, and that data will get upgraded as we speak. And while I'm doing that, let me correct this, because I made the mistake here again. Once the upgrade of the core apps will be over, we will be running the same upgrade step for India localization apps. So let's run it through. Okay, while this is running, let's go back to the article and see what we are doing right now. Okay, so here, when you come here, it says install the version, take a backup, get the list of install extension, uninstall each extension, and then unpublish all the system symbol, which we have done, stop the service, which we have done. Now I was telling you that if you are coming from a prior version where the FLF was used, you will have to run this additional step on your SQL server to remove all the license info that you have inside the database. Then you convert the database to version 26, which we did. Then you configure the service, which we did, setting up the database name, instance name, server name, and disabling the task scheduler here. Then we import the version 26 license, which I didn't need it at this point because I know an upgrade does not need a license now. It can run with a customer license. And then you need to sync the tenant, which we did. Then you go ahead and publish the apps. In the Microsoft article also talked about the core apps concept, more or less, that you have to first publish the system, then business foundation, then base application, and then the Microsoft application. Now here is a little bit different, which I don't follow, but that's up to you. It says that if you have any new versions of apps, you publish them here. Now once that is done, we'll come into sync tenant, sync nav app, which we ran for all the apps that we had. And then currently we are here to start the nav data upgrade. Okay, so we are installing upgrading the nav data upgrade. If you are coming from a prior version which did not had a foundation, business foundation, then you install the business foundation rather than upgrading it, because it was not there. Once this is done, which we are almost done now, then you need to install the new versions, which we will not be doing. We'll go into a different route. Now this is done, let's go back and see the state of our tenant. So okay, so now if you look at it, it says that the extensions are in sync. It is 26.1, the extension data is 26.1, and we should be able to access the environment. Let's see if we can or not. Okay, so this should now point to our environment, which had three companies, the Kronos India, the mock, and the test. We'll be looking into the other required step once we have a look on this data. Now what else we have to do when we're talking about the upgrade? So we have Kronos India, mock, and test. If you go into the extension management at this moment, you'll notice that the similar app that we had on BC25 are also available here, but the version that's they are pointing is 26.1 at this moment. So we're good more or less at this point, but let's continue. So now there are control add-ins which are part of BusinessCentral. They give you errors sometime, but I'll still try it. This step updates your control add-in, and I did not. Did I not? I did. Server instance. Where is the server instance? Okay, it says because it's null. Okay, it doesn't identify this as a parameter. So let me just quickly update it here. I wanted to keep it generic, but that's okay. Let me replace it everywhere. Okay, done that, and remove this. Okay, so what I can do is I can pick this bunch and run this. Now this updates the control add-in that are part of your system. If there are some control add-in which are not part of your installation, you might get an error message, but this doesn't impact you operationally, so don't worry about it. There might be everything, and this step has been erroring out for a while with the Microsoft upgrade. I don't know why, but nothing major. Now at this moment you are sitting at version 26, which we looked at it. When you go into help and support, you see that everything is upgraded here, but when you do as a developer, when somebody looks at your environment and checks the get nav application, that's an easy way to see what the version of your environment is. Place in the parameter of server instance and hit enter. They'll notice that your application version still points to 25.6. For that, you have to set the nav application, which happens with a force. Then you have to run a sync. Then you have to run the upgrade. And last but not least, you have to set a configuration parameter so that the help and support points to the right endpoint. This step is mandatory if if somebody looks at your environment and checks with the get nav application, they should get 26.1 in this case rather than getting 25.6. Now this completes all our upgrade, but yeah, there is always a but. There are a lot of apps other than what we have installed till now. The reason we did not had all these apps which are not selected is because we were coming from a NAV version, and every data that was available in a NAV version was part of these selected apps. But your customer may want to use more features which are available with Business Central rather than what they had in NAV. So I always recommend developers to talk to their customers, explain them what these different apps do, and then make sure whatever helps in their business, make sure to install those apps so that your customers can use it. Now there are some that are not applicable to Business Central on-prem environment, but that's a completely separate discussion altogether. So we have dealt with the core and IN, and then as I was saying earlier, internally we have a script which kind of breaks all these different apps based on how many dependencies they have. So we'll just run that, and what it'll do is it'll start installing all these newer apps into your environment. Okay, so you'll notice slowly here that you'll start getting messages that these apps are installed. At the same time, in your environment, you'll notice that these apps are now part of your environment. So while this is running, because there are a lot of apps available, we should head up back into our extension management. If I can. Extension management. And you'll start seeing that more and more apps will start becoming visible here as this command starts running. So let's wait for it and let's see what happens here. Right now, all the apps in the Microsoft product DVD which had only dependencies with the core apps, or in summary which had only one dependency more or less, are getting installed, or zero dependency. These apps will be available on the screen as the update process or install process completes, and it'll be easier to see that what gets installed here rather than doing the same three steps in this case: publish, sync, and install nav app. Now these three commands make sure that a new app gets into your environment. As you can see, the messages start popping up on the screen that the app is published, sync, and installed. For API reports finance, which is installed, recommended app, which is installed. So if I refresh this page, we'll notice that as we see these messages, we see that these apps are now part of the system. So let's wait for it, and we'll be able to see that API report finance is here now. Recommended apps will be here somewhere here. The review, I'll have to refresh it again, but all these apps slowly will start getting into the system as we move along. Now these additional apps give your users access to the new features. For the demo purposes, I'm installing everything, but in a real world scenario, you should explain what this particular extension does, and if your customer needs them, then and only then install this, because you don't want to add additional apps which are not used by the business, because eventually they'll slow down the system, because there are dependencies and extensions to the base Microsoft object which are useless if a customer is not using those particular areas. But don't make that decision by yourself. And I know there are some consultants who can help you with that in your business, but make sure that they talk to your customer and they both finalize together what apps make sense to their business. Having said that, so let's wait for it. This will get in every possible app that's there. If you look into the folder 1 of in my drive, there are quite a few apps which are part of it. Okay, now what's my recommendation? There are some which are very important that you should have on your customer environment, like anything related to email. They should have it. Every customer in some form or manner uses email. APIs, they should have APIs available in their environment. External business event is another very important app if they are interacting with the cloud power platform and all. What else? If they are into Power BI, they will need API reports. This is a bunch of queries and pages, read-only pages and queries, which gives access to the data on the Power BI domain using the power of APIs. What else? Excel reports. Microsoft have released this extension a few versions ago, and it contains a lot of Excel layouts for very commonly used reports in the business. So make sure that they have Excel report extension installed. If they are into Azure, which are new, I didn't know about it, but now Microsoft have 3 extension, one for Azure Blob connector, one for Azure File Share connector, and then there is a SharePoint connector, which is available for file storage. So if they are into any file handling system, these apps becomes important. I haven't tested them out, but I'm pretty sure they are neatly and rightly done as expected. What else? Let's see. I don't see anything major here. Now, everything else is more or less dependent on business of what they need and how they operate. So I guess that choice is with them. But then there is an on-prem permission. Now, if you don't know, permission are no longer a data. They are part of an extension. So all apps are publish their own permissions, but then the on-prem permission kind of acts as an overlay and group those permissions in an administrator perspective, so that you can see and understand what this particular permission includes and excludes. So make sure if you are installing or upgrading on-prem or installing a new version on your customer environment, that they have on-prem permission installed. Now, as you can see that I'm installing some Copilot or AI features also, but just to be very clear, I haven't read recently, but in the past, it was a very clear message that all Microsoft Copilot are only for cloud, so you'll not be able to access them on-prem. So don't install them if they cannot use it, right? As you can see, the list is growing as we are refreshing. That means more and more extensions are coming into place. So let's pause the video for a while. Okay, so apps with zero dependency or nearly one basic dependency are installed. Let's change the command to 2 this time and we'll close this. Okay. So I'll change the folder to 2, which means that now I'm requesting my PowerShell script to install all the apps which have more than one dependency. Now this is taking care of any apps which is dependent on these apps which were previously installed. Now the way the dependency work is you can only install, let's say, the email current user connector when Outlook REST API from email is already installed, because Outlook REST API is a dependency on the other email apps. So you can't change that order. You'll have to kind of follow the sequence, and this script kind of take care of it that we have in house at this moment, and installs the other extensions which were dependent on the previous set of extensions that we installed. Having said that, if you will be able to look at it in a while, you will see that all the apps that comes with the demo database are available here, and we already have all our 3 companies as it is, with all the data that was available in them in NAV 2016 is still available and intact. Remember, because I get this question a lot of time, should I force my extension while doing sync because I'm getting errors? No, you should not. The system is generating that error message because you have either missed a step somewhere or have done something wrong in the upgrade process. So until unless it's very clearly specified by the owner of the app that you have to run something with force, don't do that. And maybe when I do the next video on an upgrade to 26, which should be coming next week hopefully, we'll talk about a situation where the app owner have said it very clearly that you will have to run the force. Now in only on those situations, if the app developer or owner, in this case most of these apps which are installing are by Microsoft, so in this case, let's say if you're getting an error or India reports, you should not be running it force until unless Microsoft says this clearly that for this particular app, make sure that you run the force command on the sync. So if you have an error in the sync with mode sync, then don't change it to force just because you don't know how to move forward with it. As soon as you change the mode to force, you are giving instructions to your PowerShell script to delete the data that does not comply with the new schema set or the old schema set. So just to complete your upgrade, don't use force, as I said, until unless specified by the app developer who built that app. From Microsoft step, you should go back and review your steps. If you have to run a force sync with the Microsoft app, you surely are doing something wrong somewhere. Okay, now let's see how many apps were there in this new folder so that we can complete this. There were 2, 4 and 6 apps. Out of them we have 3 already done. Others 3 will follow the path in a while, but okay. Hopefully this whole series helped you to understand how you upgrade from a NAV 2016 IN localization to the latest version of BusinessCentral, which is 26 at this moment. I know there are good amount of questions around it that, oh, this was Kronos, we want to see a custom. Believe me, I would love to do that. Just give me some insights on what tables you want me to add some custom fields, and I'll be happy to kind of explain those scenarios here. Okay, just name them into the comments. This table, add some custom field. This table, add some custom field. I know some scenarios which I would like to cover, but if you have any specific requirement, just make sure to highlight them into the comments, and then maybe in a week or 2 we'll start recording that part of the equation with customizations in 2016 if needed. On that part of the series, I'll run a little bit faster, and it might not have these 5 parts as this one had, because I'm expecting that you would have understood all those nuances in this particular series. So I'll keep referring this series into the next series that will be coming on upgrades. Not just about upgrade, if you have any other video requests, let me know into the comments and we'll be happy to process that. You know the drill at this moment. If you have queries, suggestions, add them into the comment box. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you think somebody is struggling with the upgrade and has problems with it, do share this with at least one person who didn't knew about this channel, and because of you he gets introduced to us. Our idea is to reach every person into the Business Central ecosystem with the content that we are adding into this channel, and without your help it will not be possible. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Sometime I forget to share these on social media, so if you are a subscriber you get a notification from YouTube. Otherwise you will miss a video that is recorded for this channel. As I said during the video, if you have any business request or query, reach out to us at info@edhateconsulting.com and we'll be happy to help you. So that being said, keep learning and keep sharing whatever you're learning, and I'll see you sooner than later into the next video. Thank you and have a nice day.